Morning football fans, you got a Thursday edition of Birds 365 coming your way. We're excited about the upcoming football on Sunday, even though it doesn't include the Eagles championship week, but we've also got Eagle news to talk about, which is kind of bittersweet. Anytime a guy calls it a career, you're happy for him, but you're also disappointed because you're not going to get to see him play anymore. It's a little easier with the guy we're going to have to talk about today because over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to see him play as much as we would have liked. Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald, and John McMullen here to talk Birds football with you for the next 2 hours. You texted me day before yesterday and said ixnay on the Brandon Brooks say, but it looks like we're going to have a meeting to be able to talk to Brandon, which both you and I theorized it was probably going to be a retirement announcement, and that's exactly what happened today. The Eagles confirmed it for you yesterday while we were here on the air on Birds 365, and that's exactly what it was yesterday. No great surprise, and this is another one of those unfortunate incidents where you got to be doing things virtually, and you don't get as good feeling on the emotions of it. But you could judge by what was broadcast yesterday. Brandon Brooks held up well, but I thought he was on the verge of losing it emotionally because anytime you walk away from a game you love, Johnny Mack, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, it is. Couple times, Jeff Stoutland when he talked about him on one occasion. Then it was Lane Johnson. They both shared similar issues, at least when it came to anxiety and things like that, mental health. So, and obviously they're very close. They've been very close for years. It's the best right side in football, and sort of thrown together, and they just became very, very close. So yeah, it's difficult, and we knew it was coming, sort of behind the scenes, and it was the grind and the constant rehab and the injury after injury after injury after injury. It was torn Achilles, dislocated shoulder, torn Achilles, pec, which I believe was torn, slight tear, but interestingly, it was the pec, because he planned on coming back this season. The team had him in their plans. Nick Sirianni never placed his number on his visor. He would do that for the players out for the season because they thought he was going to come back, and it just didn't respond to the rehab. And Brandon said sometimes you got to listen to your body, and sometimes you got to listen to your body. He's only 32 years old. It's interesting, when we talk about legacy and things like that, we talk about longevity, and that's part of it. I mean, no question about it. But from 2016, really the Doug Peterson era, so 2016 to through that era, he was one of the best offensive linemen in football. I mean, and probably 2019 was the most amazing season. And that's, if you remember, he tore the Achilles. He tore his first Achilles in the playoffs against the Saints, and that arguably cost them the game. They were playing very, very well in that game, and Brandon went down, and all of a sudden, they started to struggle a little bit in the Saints, and that was obviously a really, really tough loss. So you could argue they would have won that game if he was able to stay healthy, and who knows what happens from there as you try to go back to back in Super Bowls. But um we're all like all off season. So that's the second round of the playoffs, remember, because that was the double doink year
Right.
in Chicago. So that's later in January, and we're saying to ourselves, okay, towards Achilles, well, that's minimum 9 months. It could be a year, that type of injury. And he's back for week one in the next season, and he had his best season. He was dominant. I think that was the season Pro Football Focus graded him not only the number one offensive guard in the NFL, the number one offensive lineman, period. Tackle, guard, center. It was an amazing comeback. But you start to wonder, look, what do you have to do at 340 pounds to come back from that injury? And ultimately, a while later, a year later, essentially, he tore the other Achilles. How much are you favoring one to rehab the other and vice versa? Nobody knows. But it just became over and over and over again. And unfortunately, that span, the longevity wasn't there. But at the height of his game, he was one of the best offensive linemen in football. And he's the definition. I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated. He's the definition of what you want in free agency. It's like, he was a good player in Houston. Coming off his rookie contract, had some upside. You sign him, you bring him in, you get him under the right coach, the right talent around him, and he turns into a star. But it's obviously easier said than done when it comes to evaluating things correctly. But the Eagles certainly got Brandon Brooks correct.
Jam, I want to talk about this year first, and we can talk about the history and his contribution as part of the Super Bowl champion. He'll go down with that group, and it'll be an all-time group as far as adoration from the Philadelphia fans goes, as well it should be. This past year, when he showed up at training camp and played in the very limited snaps he had in the preseason and game number one, judging as any media guy could from an offensive line standpoint, it's difficult because we don't have the same game day breakdown tapes that the coaches get and the like. It's just something that you need to become good at to be able to evaluate. And I know you're that kind of football observer. How would you say look this year? Because no one is surprised. It's the combination of injury on top of injury on top, fourth time, almost an entire year by the wayside. No one should be surprised that Brandon Brooks decided to call it a career yesterday, even though at age 32 for an offensive lineman, some offensive linemen play well into their 40s. Whitworth is coming back this week and he's going to play, and he's been doing it for close to 2 decades. So it's certainly plausible that an offensive lineman can play well into his 30s. Brandon's not going to do that. How did he finish up? What was did we start to see a decline in the game? I know we started to see decline in his health because the injuries just added up to too much for him to begin to come on. But from what you observed, talking to Stoutland, talking to his teammates and the like, what level was Brandon at when, unfortunately, his final snap was taken?
It really is tough to kind of formulate because he didn't play that much. He really played the first game, and obviously the Eagles played very well in Atlanta, and then he got hurt fairly early in the second game. So we had one game to really judge Brandon coming back, because remember, he missed the entire 2020 season.
Right.
So ultimately, over the final 2 years, he played 2 games and really 1.5.
Game and a half, yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't look like himself early, I would say, in Atlanta, and especially, as a run blocker, because that's what he was most known for. He was such a big, powerful guy, and he would just blow people off the line of scrimmage. And I talked a lot about how for the second Achilles, he dropped all the way down to about 270, 275 and came all the way back up and was a little bit less than he typically weighed. So I don't think he was quite looking like himself, but you would think as the year went on, it would have got better and better and better. But we barely saw him. So it is tough to formulate, but clearly he didn't think he was the same. So I think he knows better than anybody else. And, I do keep going back to that because I think it's kind of foreshadowed Brandon's thinking when he dropped all the weight to try to rehab. I think it was a key point in his decision making. And he admitted, he was thinking about retirement in 2020, trying to come back from that. So I think that was the crux of it all. And obviously the pec, you're when you go from anybody who's been in the weight room, when you go from 275 to 330, 335, you're lifting a lot of weight and you're putting a lot of strain, especially in your upper body. If you're an offensive lineman, you want to worry. Obviously, your legs are very important as well. And then all of a sudden, you get those pec strains and those pec tears when you're doing a lot of upper body work. So, again, who knows? Sports science can't figure it out. I certainly can't figure it out. But 2 games over 2 years, 2 full seasons, it's just difficult. And I understand Brandon's thinking. Let's put it that way.
And usually when you lose a player of the magnitude of Brandon Brooks, it's because he's 3-year consecutive Pro Bowl type player. That's a major loss for an organization, and you're going to expect the team to not be able to play as well when you just subtract that kind of a talent and production level guy. The Eagles have done it. They've done it 2 years running. They have been able to fill the hole, the void put in place because of Brandon Brooks' injury, and we bend over backwards to talk about it here on Bird 365 about their offensive line depth and how much Jeff Stoutland means to this team, that he gets these guys who aren't Brandon Brooks up to speed so the drop-off isn't as noticeable as it would be, or you would think it would be, and kudos and credit to the Eagles for something like that. Now it's just a permanent issue that Brandon Brooks has stepped away, but when you were evaluating the Eagles end of the season, looking forward to next season, what moves are going to have to make to get better and the like, you weren't factoring Brandon Brooks into any of that thought process, were you?
No. I had a pretty good indication that he was not going to be back. So the only question was, is he going to retire? Is he going to try to go play somewhere else? And I don't think he wanted to play anywhere else. That factored into it as well. So, it's one of those difficult decisions, but it was pretty clear when, he didn't come back. Remember, it was supposed to be an 8-week injury. So you get hurt in week 2, you're talking about week 10, week 11. And that's when we all started asking Nick Sirianni for updates, and no updates, no updates, no updates, no updates, no updates. Because Brandon was contemplating behind the scenes if he even wanted to try to continue to play. And it became clear that that was the end of his career, certainly here in Philadelphia, and it ended up to be the end of his career as a whole. The Eagles knew that ultimately when it came to 2022, they were going to have a new full-time right guard. And, they've been planning for this, and that's one of the reasons they drafted Landon Dickerson, who's got the ability to play everywhere in the interior. They have Isaac Seumalo, who's got tremendous versatility and can play anywhere, basically on the offensive line, who will be coming back from injury. So you have to – and I always talk about this, Jody. Too many fans, when people do get injured, because I'll bring this up with Isaac. Now, Isaac's much younger. He doesn't have the same history of injury after injury after injury. But, you can't just assume a guy's in stasis for a year and he's going to come back and be the exact same guy. It doesn't happen like that. So you have to worry about that as well. And obviously, Jason Kelce has to make his decision. Ultimately, I think he's going to go back and play. And if he comes back and plays, I think the Eagles are set and they understand they're just going to move Isaac from left guard to right guard because they don't want to touch Landon Dickerson after what he was able to accomplish when Isaac went down. And that's still pretty good compared to the rest of the NFL.
You mentioned on how altogether too often people just, all right, well, he was out, but now he's coming back and he's going to play at the exact same level. More often than not, that is not the case. There is usually a reduction or a drop-off. But Brandon Brooks, appropriately enough, on a day where we say goodbye to him, kind of makes you think the other way.
Yeah.
He came back from an injury, and he was an improved player. He was a great player to begin with. He got injured, missed the whole year, and he came back and was even better than that. So,
for a short period of time. And I do want to, we talk about Pro Football Focus grades a lot. They're not the be-all, end-all, but here was Brandon Brooks in Philadelphia's first 4 years. 12 out of 75 his first year, which was 2016. Third out of 79 in the Super Bowl season. 8th out of 77 in 2018. And then when he came off the Achilles, and I said the 2019, number 1 out of 83 and the number 1 offensive lineman in the entire NFL. It's pretty good.
All right, one other thing I want to touch on. We're going to get our first guest up here, Mike Sielski. We had booked before Brandon's announcement came down. Mike will surely have insight and opinions to share on that when he hops aboard with us. But we've already kind of broken down where you and I see the Eagles going from a production and on the field without Brandon Brooks going forward. There's also the financial end of it. Brandon walks away, but the Eagles still have cap issues to deal with. They'll immediately get cap relief because he was scheduled to have, I think, a 19 million and change cap number in the upcoming year, salary plus prorated bonuses and everything else. When you retire, yes, that prorated money from guaranteed money that was already given, bonuses and the like, you have to account for at some point. The Eagles have chosen to spread it out over 2 seasons. They redid Brandon's contract prior to his retiring yesterday. So he's only going to have a veteran minimum number as a base salary on their books as of right now. But they still have a goodly amount to cover for over the next year. They get a break. They will actually have more flexibility in this year, but they did push a little money forward, which I always kind of wonder about. Is that a smart thing or is it a questionable thing? If you believe the cap is going to go up every single year, which it does sans COVID, and we don't know, maybe there's another outbreak of COVID, but the Eagles are betting on that not being the case. So they are putting more money forward to 2023, which is going to give them less flexibility the year after, but they actually create salary flexibility this year.
Yeah, they do, and they actually went up, and as you mentioned, in salary cap space because of the tweak they did with the contract. And right now, and it is, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I do think fans get too worried about the salary cap we see every year. Did the Eagles get under the salary cap last year? Remember, we talked about salary cap hell with Carson Wentz. They were able to get under just fine. Now, there are different, I mean, New Orleans would be a perfect example. One of the reasons the Saints are, Sean Payton's moved on. You have difficult decisions to make when you go way over the cap, and you have to make, and the Eagles had to do that last year. Howie's great at it. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it. They have enough room. They'll be able to do what they want to do. They can't be one of the splashiest teams, but you don't want to be one of those teams. You don't want to go spend $80 million in free agency on your cap because that means you stink to begin with. So, it's all about making good football decisions, and Howie's good at manipulating things in the cap. But yeah, they have to pay the money down the road, and that's part of kicking the can. But everybody does it. It's not just them. He was one of the first. Everybody does it now. They came up with the voidable years idea, and it's just part of the NFL. It's bookkeeping.
Bookkeeping is something the Eagles had to do, and now playing without Brandon Brooks is something they're going to have to do pretty darn good, replace him this year, and we'll see if they can continue that going forward. Sans one of their key contributors to a Super Bowl winning team here in Philadelphia. All right, coming up next, our buddy Mike Sielski for the Inquirer is going to hop on board. We'll certainly ask him about Brandon Brooks, the Eagles offseason. I'll get some playoff thoughts for the championship game weekend while we're at it with Mike Sielski, who's next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free. What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You know you like being right. That's why you should enroll in an Independence Blue Cross plan. It's the health plan chosen by more people than any other, with more doctors and hospitals, more benefits that really rock, more of the coverage you want for the right price, including free doctor visits 24/7. It's a choice you can feel good about, because when you're right, you're right. And when you've got Independence Blue Cross, you're right where you need to be. Call 1-844-200-2583 today to get an Independence Blue Cross plan.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Birds 365 here on the JAKIB YouTube channel. McMullen, McDonald. And we are joined by a third personality. He is the preeminent columnist, my opinion, here in Philadelphia. And we're going to get him on to talk about quarterback because he wrote a big-time article in the Inquirer about what do you say after your Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen do what they do about Jalen Hurts here in town. But we've got a lot of other things to talk about, with him about as well. Mike Sielski from the Inquirer joins us here on Birds 365. Michael, Happy New Year, my friend. We haven't talked to you since. How's it going so far in 2022?
It's going great, guys. Thanks for having me. Very busy with book selling and
big star now everywhere. Mike Sielski, I'm thrilled you stopped by.
I don't know about the big star part, John. I'm about a step away from, putting a sandwich board on me and standing out at Broad and Market and saying we'll sell Kobe books for food.
Well, it's a very good book, and everybody obviously should get it. The Rise, Kobe Bryant and the Pursuit of Immortality, the rise of KobeBook.com. So we'll get that out of the way quickly, Mike. But I do want to talk about some of the book in Kobe, but we'll hit, because we're a football show, we'll hit the football stuff first. And you did write a great column about the quarterback situation. But before that, I want to get to Brandon Brooks, because you've been around Brandon for a while. What a great player to cover over the years. In a lot of ways, I think his legacy off the field is greater than on the field. No, by the way, on the field, it was short. It was a short span. But those first 4 seasons in the Doug Peterson era, there was not a better offensive guard in football. So when you have that combination, also the things that he brought as far as visibility to mental health issues, especially, a guy 6'5", 340 pounds. And you say, well, he's not afraid of anything. And he's got issues just like everybody else. So your thoughts on covering Brandon Brooks over the years?
Going to miss him. One of those guys who, when we were allowed in the locker room way back when, you would make a beeline for if you saw him there. In part because you knew his answers were going to be intelligent and honest. And that's what you're looking for in any kind of player or any kind of athlete you want to cover. You want somebody who's not going to feed you BS, who's going to be upfront with you, who regards you as a human being too. And that's one of the things that I thought we could talk about Brandon first as this human being. Like, he knew we had jobs to do too. And there are fewer and fewer of those athletes around who don't regard people who do what we do as just kind of annoyances to be dealt with. He seemed to be pretty genuine about interacting with us, about understanding we had a job to do. And if you came prepared to ask him some good questions, he would give you good answers in return. Take it to him as an athlete in the field. Go back and watch the NFC Championship game in 2018 between the Eagles and the Vikings. His play in that game is remarkable. The block that he makes on LeGarrette Blount's go-ahead touchdown just clears a path for Blount to get to the end zone. And Brandon was even better than that, I thought, in the subsequent years. I mean, as you said, John, he was, one of the 4 or 5 best linemen, period, I think, in the NFL. And it's a shame that his career had to end so quickly. But by the same token, as you said, what he did for the issue of mental health among athletes, and even what he did to rehabilitate his first torn Achilles tendon.
Unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. I remember, standing there with him after a game, I believe it was against the Bears in 2018 or 19. And he had just had an incredible game. And he sat there at his locker and talked to a group of us about what it was like and what he went through to get healthy again after that injury. And it was remarkable. And he took us through the whole thing in detail. Definitely somebody who's going to be missed when it comes to covering the Eagles.
John, I'm not a psychologist, and I loathe to play one, even here on YouTube. And I know that's not your foray either, but you're probably better suited to be able to talk about something like this because you're with these guys and get a chance to talk to these guys more than I do. First, Brandon Brooks, and then Lane Johnson. 2 mega men who had mental health issues here in Philadelphia. A position where you would, the regular football observer would think, well, these guys, look at them. Of course they're fine. They can just deadlift their way out of any issues they have. But we've learned that that's not the case, first with Brandon and then with Lane Johnson. Is there something about that position that puts more strain on someone mentally? And we've seen 2 guys with just uber amounts of talent and a ton of success both succumb to mental health issues. Is it something about trying to be an offensive lineman in the NFL, in your opinion?
I think might be something to that, Jody, insofar as offensive line is the one position on the offense, I feel like, other than quarterback, where you've got to know everything that's going on, number one. And number two, you are uber reliant on the people immediately around you. And it's different even from wide receiver, right? Wide receiver requires a level of confidence, a level of bravado, almost arrogance to play the position well, I think. Offensive line is different. It requires a lot of thinking in addition to being just a hulking, piece of, athleticism there, 6'5", 340 pounds, et cetera, et cetera. And I think so that might play into it a little bit. Again, I don't want to play psychologist either, but the thing about offensive linemen, John knows this, and Jody, you know this too, like they are the best guys in the locker room to talk to about football strategy, and because they have to know it all. And there's something I think about that position, in addition to what I just mentioned about it being kind of on the offense, the ultimate team position. You're not catching the ball. You're not throwing the ball. You're not running with the ball. You're making all that other stuff happen. And so maybe from a personality standpoint, you kind of have to be oriented in a certain way to play that position and play it well. And maybe it opens itself up to athletes of a certain personality type. Again, I don't want to generalize. I don't want to play pop psychologist here, but there might be something to what you're saying.
Yeah, Mike, one of the things that always struck me to the point where I asked Brandon about it yesterday was the way these guys, and specifically I'm talking about Brandon, Lane, and Jason Kelce, would talk about Jason Peters over the years. It always struck me because you got arguably the best center in football, the best right guard in football, the best right tackle in football, at least at portions of their career. And they all looked at this guy in reverence, and they always talked about him in these reverential terms. And I would say to myself, back end of Jason's career, Jason Peters, I'm talking about, he wasn't the same here as he once was. But when Brandon was giving me the answer, and ultimately guys like Nate Herbig and Jack Driscoll, they look at Brandon Brooks the way Brandon looked at Jason Peters.
Mm-hmm.
But then he started talking about social media, and he started talking about trying to live up to your reputation when you hit to that point. And, you know, it's like the old adage, more money, more problems. Well, more accolades, more problems. You know, you're always trying to live up to what other people think you are or think you should be. You think that's part of it?
I absolutely do. And especially, John, contrast what you just talked about with the nature of playing offensive line, which is mano a mano, macho y macho, who's bigger, who's stronger, who dominates who on what play. I mean, that's an environment that, you know, if you have a shred of doubt, or, you know, that can balloon into something, or it could create doubt in your own mind in a way that maybe some other positions in football don't. You know, again, we're kind of extrapolating some of our own thoughts onto what Brandon may or may not have thought. And I'm always hesitant to do that, but it's a fascinating kind of, like, if you wanted to get a PhD in like the way offensive linemen think, I can't think of a couple of better examples of people you could sit down and talk to about it, you know, than Brandon Brooks or Jason Kelsey or Lane Johnson or Jason Peters, even if he'd be willing to talk to you about it. I'm not sure he would.
Yeah, Jason Peters, all-time great, but it's a lineage that the Eagles have created, and the key central figure is Jeff Stoutland, who just continues to get these guys up to speed and playing at levels that maybe we didn't think was going to be possible. But certainly Brandon Brooks has set the bar very high for those who will come after. All right, Mike, do want to talk to you about the column you wrote the other day about the quarterback position here in Philadelphia as compared to others out there in the league, specifically some AFC quarterbacks, two of which are going to play this weekend against each other, Mahomes and Burrows. We just saw Mahomes and Allen play against each other. We all agree that Jalen Hurts is not there just yet, but that's what happens. You're going with what's freshest in your mind, and we just saw an unbelievable show between those two AFC quarterbacks the other day. Is that where we have to measure Jalen Hurts against right now? Is that even fair to assume that Jalen Hurts can be anything near the producers that Mahomes and Allen are?
Well, Jody, it doesn't matter what we think. What matters is what Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman think. And John and I have talked about this before, and I've written about this before, and I know John is kind of in simpatico on this. Everybody knows how Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman regard the quarterback position. It is the alpha and the omega of your football team for the most part. And they are all about trying to find a franchise quarterback for a lot of reasons. They follow what is now conventional wisdom in the league, that you need an elite quarterback, generally speaking, to be an elite team, to kind of keep you competitive for a Super Bowl every single year. You know, that's why they went out in 1999 and drafted Donovan McNabb. That's why they drafted Carson Wentz. That's why they signed Michael Vick to his big contract after the 2010 season. It's the residue of Andy Reid from him coming in here and kind of setting that mindset. So I would look at Jalen Hurts and I would say, okay, he's going to cost you less than $2 million next year under the salary cap. What do you do? Do you go the route of the 49ers, let's say, and say you don't have an elite quarterback, but you're saving some money relative to the cap, and so you can build a good team around him? Or do you try to go the route of the way these other teams have gone, and either by pinpointing or stumbling into a elite guy? And I think Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, in their heart of hearts, watched those games this weekend and said, we want Patrick Mahomes. We want Josh Allen. We want something approximating that level of play out of our quarterback. And so to me, that kind of muddies the waters when it comes to Jalen Hurts' future. Do I think, all things being equal, he's likely to be back as the starter next season? Like 52-48, in terms of percentages. But I don't see how you could look at the history of this team and think to yourself anything other than Lurie and Roseman watched that weekend and said, oh my gosh, that's the future of the NFL. And we're not going to be part of it if we don't have a quarterback like those guys.
So, Mike, some people, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, will point to Josh Allen early in his career There were accuracy issues. There were decision-making problems, processing problems, and he elevated his game. He was able to develop as a player. Is Jalen Hurts capable of developing to become that type of player? And I'll put Patrick Mahomes off to the side. I think we all know he's sort of that generational talent. But can he turn into a top-tier quarterback? And when I say top-tier, top 10, top 12, maybe not 1, 2, or do we already have enough information? Do you have to follow the courage of your convictions if you're Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and say, look, you're right. It's easiest. You can win a lot of ways in this league. The 49ers proved that. But guess what? You're not going to win with a block punt every week, a block field goal. The margin of error decreases if you don't have a superstar quarterback. Is that just always going to be the Eagles' default setting?
All right, so let's unpack a lot. You said a lot there, John, so let's unpack it. Number one, the comparison between Allen and Hurts. I don't think anybody would look at Josh Allen's physical skills as a quarterback when it comes to playing the position either from the pocket or on the move and say Jalen Hurts has those skills to that degree. He clearly does not have Allen's arm strength, which I'm not sure anybody in the NFL does. Maybe Mahomes does. And that was a big reason that the Bills, can tell I have basketball in the brain. The Bills took a chance on him in drafting him out of Wyoming. It was that despite the accuracy issues, he could throw the ball through a brick wall. And if you play in Buffalo, you got to be able to do that. Yeah. So, they were going to take that chance that they could mold him into the quarterback he now, by all accounts, appears to be. Okay. Now, Jalen can do some really good things. And Jalen can improve. I don't think there's any doubt about that he can continue to get better. The question the Eagles have to answer is, how much better do they think he can get? And what are the pieces that he would need around him? It's, like I pointed out in the column, it's not as simple as just saying, get a franchise quarterback. It is get a quarterback and then put him on the sliding scale of how good is he and how much do we have to pay him versus how good is he and how much does he allow us to build a team around him? You're trying to do both at the same time. Again, that was why the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, 2018. It wasn't just that Carson Wentz was an MVP caliber quarterback for the first 13 weeks of the season, and then Nick Foles played out of his mind in the playoffs. It was that those guys cost so little money under the salary cap that the Eagles could build for that season a terrific team around them. They could get Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey and Timmy Jernigan and Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount, et cetera, and build a really good roster around those guys because they had the cap flexibility to do that. Hurts clearly allows you to do that next season if you keep him as the quarterback. And the question they have to ask themselves is, okay, let's say Russell Wilson wants to come to Philadelphia. What do we have to give up to get him? And by giving up what we would have to give up, are we hampering what we can ourselves in terms of what we can put around Russell to maximize what he is, right? If the cost of getting Russell Wilson is a couple first round draft picks and, the fact that now he's taking up more money under the cap, does it hamstring you when it comes to building the team around him? So while I look at Jalen Hurts and say, boy, I don't think he's going to approximate what Josh Allen is or what Joe Burrow is or Patrick Mahomes is, maybe the Eagles could build a team around him next season because he costs so little money and be good. But that's me. I'm not sure Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman look at it that way.
All right, hypothetical for you again, even though you're not Jeff Lurie or Howie Roseman. Your opinion is well respected here on this show and elsewhere. Hypothetical, if the cost is the same, 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, 3 first-round picks over a period of time, and it's a one-day sale. Russell Wilson from Seattle, Deshaun Watson from Houston, and you're Howie Roseman, you have to make the call tomorrow. Can't wait to see how Deshaun stuff plays out. Yes, Russell Wilson's getting older with every single day, but still looked pretty damn good to me this year. If the price was the same for the two guys, but you had to pull the trigger tomorrow, Watson, Wilson, pass.
Tomorrow, I pass. I certainly don't consider Watson, both for off the field reasons and for the possibility that those off the field reasons will affect you on the field. Too much of a wild card. And just from a principle standpoint, I wouldn't pursue Deshaun Watson at this point until and if he is cleared of all these charges. As far as Russell Wilson goes, I think he's a great quarterback. I do. And at 33, he could continue to be a productive one for a while. That's the way the league is now. But I would not pull the trigger on that, because I think the benefit of having Jalen Hurts on his rookie contract and the possibility that he can continue to improve outweighs the go get Russell Wilson now. I think we undersell to a degree players' developments nowadays, right? Like, are there all that many examples of guys who like blossomed later in their careers? No, there aren't that many examples, but it happens. And so I would look at that and say, you know, Jalen Hurts has checked off some of the things that you need to check off if you are going to be a starting quarterback in Philadelphia. The locker room respects him. He seems to be able to handle the media market and the fan base really well, which if you don't think that's a factor, then you were not here for the Carson Wentz and Donovan McNabb eras in Philadelphia. Both supremely talented quarterbacks, both of them guys who had trouble within the market because of handling it and perceptions and pressure and all that kind of stuff. Hurts, by all accounts, doesn't let that stuff bother him. So you have to take those factors into consideration too. It's not just, can he throw the ball through a brick wall? It is, can he handle everything around him? Because he's a human being too. And for me, as you said, Jody, got to pull the trigger tomorrow. I'm going to stick with Jalen Hurts.
Now, how much does this particular year play into any kind of sense of urgency in this standpoint, Mike? You have 3 first-round picks. That's not common. So you have 15, 16, 19 as we stand here today. Now, everyone says the quarterbacks in the draft aren't good enough, but there's too much groupthink in the NFL. Let's wait to see what the Eagles evaluate, and Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, all those guys. But even if they don't like those quarterbacks, you have that extra draft capital. If you kick the can down the road, let's see how this develops, you're not going to have the ability to go get Russell Wilson type players or Deshaun Watson type players if he's cleared of his legal entanglements. How much does the circumstance play into the Eagles' need to speed up this decision?
It plays into it a lot, John. And to your point about quarterbacks, this not being a quarterback-rich draft, yeah, let's see come March and April. Let's see after the Senior Bowl and let's see after the Combine, because these things have a funny way of changing. All of a sudden, because the position is so highly valued around the league, I think teams often talk themselves into, hey, Mitch Trubisky, you know, it looks pretty good to me. I mean, nobody was talking about Carson Wentz as the number 2 overall pick in the draft in January of 2015 or 16, January 2016. Nobody was talking about him in that regard. So let's see how things play out. I think a lot of teams can talk themselves into a lot of different things ahead of the draft. But yeah, you're right. I mean, knowing Howie, they're going to have some kind of plan, right? With flexibility built into that plan. And again, I come back to what I would do is a whole lot different from what Howie and Jeffrey are probably thinking about doing. They're going to evaluate these quarterbacks as they always do in this draft. They're going to evaluate the quarterbacks that may or may not be available through a trade. And they're going to say to themselves, okay, if now is the time to get Russell Wilson and he's available, I would bet on them trading for Russell Wilson. I just would. Go ahead, Jody.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were.
Whatever, man. Just talk whatever you want to talk. It's fine.
Thank you for helping us run Birds 360.
What is this, your show, man?
As a matter of fact, I was going to follow in McMullen's footsteps, sticking with the in this situation line of thinking. Tom Brady could retire. Aaron Rodgers could either retire or be in the AFC. Sean Payton is not coaching the New Orleans Saints this year, and I think he's one of the best coaches on the planet. So the NFC hierarchy could shake pretty well during this offseason. Do the Eagles react to that, or do they keep the wide picture? We like to be in it every single year. That's our goal, to every year be in the mix for a championship. Or do they get more aggressive because they see an opening for 2022?
I don't think they're at the stage that they were in 16 and 17, where they were so high on Wentz that they said to themselves, okay, he's getting better. We've got our guy. We believe in him. Therefore, we're going to go make big moves or make enough moves for the short term, right? They were smart in what they did in 17. They said to themselves, we've got an up-and-coming quarterback. We're going to roll the dice that he is going to get even better than he was in his rookie year when he showed flashes of greatness. And we will put the pieces around him to maximize him while he's on his rookie contract. I don't think they're quite there with Jalen Hurts, right? But I think your point is well taken, Jody, particularly with respect to the NFC East, right? I mean, the Cowboys are a bit of a mess only because they can't seem to get out of their own way when it comes to the playoffs. And they'll have a great regular season, and then they'll take a step backward, and then they'll have a great regular season, and they'll take a step backward, and they'll lose in the playoffs. And so they're always trying to figure it out. And you still have Washington and the Giants, who basically are messes, right? And, Taylor Heineke is okay, but he's not putting the fear of God in anybody. And I think it's an open question whether, the Giants are going to get Daniel Jones to the point that he becomes a major factor as a quarterback in the NFL and in the division. So, they may look at it and say, hey, we're ahead of the game already. We can afford to, roll the dice with Hurts or whatever the case may be. I'm not, you take those things into consideration. I'm not sure it's enough for them to go all in, or to try to let's make a run for the division title in the Super Bowl this year based on what's going on around the conference or the division.
All right, Mike, last one from me, because I want to get your thoughts on things outside of football, because there's two big things. Well, first, I want to talk about the book, and I want to talk about Kobe's origin story, and that's basically what it's about. But number one, I want to ask you, how close was LaSalle to becoming reality as a LaSalle alum? So that's my Kobe question. And then I want to talk about baseball. So
okay,
keep this in your head. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, not elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame again. I want to get your thoughts on that. So those two things, handle them how you want.
Okay, so I'll start with the LaSalle Kobe question first. This is a question near and dear to my heart as a 1997 LaSalle alumnus. I was an undergrad at the time that Kobe was weighing what to do. Joe Bryant, of course, his dad was an assistant coach at LaSalle. And for a couple of years, we lived under the delusion that Kobe might actually decide to come play ball for the Explorers at 20th and Olney, which he actually considered as a sophomore and a junior. In fact, his dad, Joe, had grand plans of, thinking that Speedy Morris might get fired and that Joe would become the head coach. And Joe would get Kobe and several of Kobe's friends on the AAU circuit, including Richard Rip Hamilton and Shaheen Holloway and Lester Earl, to come play at LaSalle and kind of recreate the Fab Five from Michigan in the early 90s. Once the summer of 1995 rolled around and Kobe was playing pickup and scrimmaging against Jerry Stackhouse and Rick Mahorn and Sean Bradley and all these Division I college players from the Philly area, that went out the window. It also went out the window for Duke and North Carolina and all the other colleges who wanted Kobe too. Yeah. Kobe knew he was going to go straight to the NBA after that summer. So thank you for bringing up such a painful memory, John. As Billy Crystal says in The Princess Bride, why don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice on it? Just kidding. As far as the Baseball Hall of Fame, the writer should not be involved in this. Nobody who regards him or herself as a member of the independent media should be voting on any kind of award affiliated with any kind of sport like this. And I've been banging this drum forever. My friend and former colleague at the Inquirer, Bob Ford, had a terrific tweet about this late last night. It's not about us. The Baseball Hall of Fame can use whatever standards it wants to use to decide who gets into the hall. And as members of the media, we can stand back and critique them and criticize them and rip them up and down if we want to, but we should not be involved in the process. And what you're seeing and what you saw in this recent vote was David Ortiz, who tested positive for steroids, getting into the Hall of Fame, and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens not getting in based on no other standard other than writers liked David Ortiz and they did not like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. That's what this came down to. And you can rationalize in any other way you want to, but that's what this is. And that's wrong. What is the standard? There is no standard. Now, when it comes to Halls of Fame, my standards are different from everybody else's. I really put the accent on fame. So I said this on the radio yesterday morning. To me, Roger Maris would be in the Hall of Fame based on his 61 home run season alone. Don Larson would be in the Hall of Fame because he threw a perfect game in a World Series game. Kirk Gibson would be in. If you look at the NFL, somebody like, we should consider whether, and I'm serious about
Nick
this,
Foles?
whether Nick Foles, yeah, or a guy like Flipper Anderson, who caught 15 passes for 336 yards in one game, sets a record that's never going to be broken. Should he be in the Hall of Fame for that? Those things stand out so much that I feel like those figures or players should be recognized. Certainly more than a guy like a Harold Baines, who was just a pretty good hitter for 20 years in Major League Baseball and just, stat padded for those 2 decades.
I hope you reach out to Gabriel Davis, who caught 200 yards in passing
how about
this
that?
past week. He's
By the way, Mike,
bound in Mike
I don't know,
Sielski's
Flipper.
Think about it.
Last time Jamar Chase played the Kansas City Chiefs, he had 266. So Flipper might still be in trouble.
Flipper had 366,
Yeah,
I think,
I know.
or something, or 336, something close to it.
Yeah.
I'm just using him as an example to kind of prove the point.
And Pro Football, by the way, does do things. So, like, they'll put Nick Foles' jersey in the Hall of Fame. They won't put the player, but they'll try to put the moment in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and football is different too, John, because the lifespan of a career is so much shorter, right?
Yeah.
And baseball doesn't, with certain exceptions like Sandy Koufax, it doesn't look at it that way. And I think it ought to. The fact that Scott Rowland is getting 65% of Hall of Fame voters' votes and Ryan Howard is getting 2%, to me is ridiculous. Ryan Howard was a far greater player at his peak than Scott Rowland was. Don Mattingly was the best hitter in baseball for a 6 to 7 year period.
Yeah.
The Hall should honor that level of greatness over a shorter period of time more often than it does.
I'm with you. I don't like trying to make, I watch Barry Bonds. I watch Roger Clemens. I saw it. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. I don't know who Barry Bonds hit a home run off of that was juicing. I don't know who Roger Clemens struck out that was juicing. Just put a damn plaque that says this is the steroid era.
Yeah.
Boom. It's a museum.
Yeah.
Easiest solution ever.
I agree with you, John. You can't wipe that history away. Bonds and Clemens were such a big part of that era of baseball. They dominated that era, not just in terms of their performance on the field, but the discussion of it. Same thing with Alex Rodriguez. And you have these voters leaving them out just because they don't like them. Same standard applies to Curt Schilling. I don't like what Curt Schilling says about media members, or I don't like his politics or anything like that. The guy is a freaking Hall of Fame pitcher. He just has the credentials. So freaking vote him in. Who cares what he thinks about, Donald Trump or Barack Obama or journalists or anything like that? Yeah, they're terrible opinions. I don't like them. He's still the guy I'd want in Game 7 with everything on the line.
All right, Sielski, I'm going to get you on my radio show, and you and I are going to do an hour on the Hall of Fame because
sounds good.
See it completely differently, but that's all right.
Come at me.
Ask you one last Kobe question, which for those who we tried to get Mike on yesterday, and he said, "Jordan can't.
Too busy. Too big a star.
It's the anniversary of Kobe's passing."
Yeah,
and I had not even realized that. So rest in peace, Kobe, and again for his family, his friends, and everyone else. We know how much he's being missed. But I got a similar question to the one that John asked, but not back to college days, to the NBA days. When he does decide to go out, I had someone once tell me, kind of off the record, that it was a done deal that Kobe Bryant was going to the Nets. That John Calipari was going to pick Kobe Bryant, that he loved Kobe Bryant, and he certainly was selecting before Charlotte, who picked him, trade him to the Lakers, and he was going to pick him. And John was told, yeah, don't do that. Kobe's going somewhere else. We want him to go somewhere else. it's going to be Kobe going somewhere else. And Calipari, whoa. It's going to be my pick. When I'm on the board, I can pick whoever I want. And he was told, well, yeah, you can, John, but how would you like to pick a guy and never get your hands on him? Because that's what's going to happen if you take Kobe Bryant. He ended up taking another Philly guy, Kerry Kittles, instead. How much truth to that story was there?
There's a good bit of it. It's not fully true, Jody. First of all, the story is true insofar as the Nets seriously considered taking Kobe Bryant, and Calipari liked him a lot. He didn't like him as much as John Nash, who was the Nets general manager at the time and had been hired at the same time as Calipari to kind of, be a wingman to Calipari. Calipari was the coach. He was the team president. He had a ton of power, and Nash was there to kind of shepherd him and be like the consigliere to him. Because Nash had so much experience as an NBA executive. Nash loved him. Nash wanted to take Kobe. Arn Tellem, who was Kobe's agent, he and Kobe wanted Kobe to end up with the Lakers. So they had to head fake the Nets. So the day of or day before the draft, and this is all in the book, Kobe and Tellem called Calipari and Nash and said, if you guys take Kobe, he will go play in Europe.
Yep.
He will go play overseas rather than go to East Rutherford and the swamps of Jersey and play for the Nets. Now, the other factor that you didn't mention, that I mentioned in the book, is that the Nets ownership did not want the team to take Kobe Bryant because, as Joe Taub, who was the kind of the basketball-oriented member of the ownership group, told Nash, if we take him and he's good, he's just going to sign somewhere else when he's a free agent anyway. Now think about that. Like the level of like insecurity and like, how you think of yourself as a franchise. We can't draft a good player. He's just going to leave anyway. So between all those factors and the fact that David Falk, who represented Kerry Kittles, was kind of lobbying Calipari to take Kittles and saying, if you don't take Kittles, none of my guys will sign with you either. There were all these pressures and machinations and all this stuff. They took the safe way out. Calipari took the safe way out, much to John Nash's chagrin. There was a meeting at the draft. The Nets power people have a meeting before the draft, and Calipari stands up and says, if we have the 8th pick, if Kerry Kittles is there, we're going to take Kerry Kittles. And if he's not there, we're going to take Kobe Bryant. And John Nash is just crestfallen because he knows that Kobe is a better player. So that's how that all played out.
I'd gotten from a pretty good source that that's exactly the way that it played out. And it is documented so well in the book that is on the bookshelves now. He's making the rounds. He's going to show up in other places. He won't get as much fun out of it as he does when he comes on Birds 365 with our guys. And I am going to get you on to Talk Hall of Fame on my radio show.
Great.
Mike, appreciate you coming on board. When can anybody get out and see you do any book signings in the area here in Philadelphia over the next couple weeks or months?
Well, actually tonight, guys, Thursday night, Ray Dittinger and I are going to be at Puddler's Kitchen in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania, as part of a fundraiser for Glenn Macnow. A friend of Glenn's was in an accident and is now a quadriplegic. So Glenn is holding a fundraiser for his friend. And Ray and I are going to be there signing books. Ray's book, his autobiography, his memoir, and my book, The Rise. So we'll be there tonight from 6 to 9 p.m. Come on by. I have said this to Glenn. It is not a lie. I'm not just saying this to curry favor with him. The Conshohocken Brewing Company's Ring the Bell Pilsner is my favorite beer. So I hope that I am in a condition to be able to sign books come like 8:30, 8:45. Because I may just have a few of them. Yeah, come early. I'm just kidding. But yeah. So come on out tonight if you can.
I take it the wife's going with you because if you're gonna do well enough with
no, I have my driver's coming, Jody.
Oh, the driver.
Yeah.
We knew book sales were good. We didn't know they were that good.
I'm kidding.
Very good to hear. Mike, thanks much for hopping on board.
Yeah.
You know we're gonna get you on playing during the off season. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks,
Mike Sielski comes on to talk football with us, but he can talk absolutely anything. And his book.
Yeah, I had to get that in. The Rise of KobeBook.com. So keep Mike in his personal drivers. Go there, buy the book.
Yeah, gas is expensive these days to be able to get Mike back and forth. So feel free to go out to their book signing tonight, and we'll keep getting Mike on here on Birds 365. All right, John McMullen, Jordan McDonald, Mac and Mac guys, coming right back here on Birds.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You know you like being right. That's why you should enroll in an Independence Blue Cross plan. It's the health plan chosen by more people than any other, with more doctors and hospitals, more benefits that really rock, more of the coverage you want for the right price, including free doctor visits 24/7. It's a choice you can feel good about, because when you're right, you're right. And when you've got Independence Blue Cross, you're right where you need to be. Call 1-844-200-2583 today to get an Independence Blue Cross plan.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We are the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thank Mike Sielski for coming on. And just one quick thought. And we've got Ira Kaufman joining us coming up in about 18 minutes from now, who, like Mike Sielski, is also a Hall of Fame voter. And we're going to ask Ira about his Hall of Fame thoughts. My thoughts on Sielski's thoughts about writers shouldn't vote for the Hall of Fame. I think it's ludicrous, his stance. We do it all the time. Everybody votes every single day in their life.
No,
you make
I don't
choices every
agree.
single. John, let me finish here. Okay?
All right.
You make choices in your life every single day, right? People choose to watch Birds 365. They may hate Jody McDonald, but we give them such good information, they're going to tune in. Or they might say, oh, I love the information, but I hate that McDonald guy. Screw them. I'm not watching that show. We vote every day. Everybody votes every day. So you're trying to find someone who would be best at making an important decision on a vote. Or you take the personality out of it completely. Do you want to do the Hall of Fame by analytics? That you have to achieve certain statistical goals? If there's going to be any selection process, voting, well, then, of course, personal preference is going to come into it. It's either that or you make it all about the numbers. I'll ask you, John McMullen, would you rather have a statistical way of deciding who the best players of all time are, or would you have someone overseeing those statistical analysis?
No. I do not agree. Mike and I do not agree on journalists should not vote for the Hall of Fame. I think they're the best equipped to vote for the Hall of Fame. Where Mike and I agree, and I'll throw Bob Ford in this as well, don't make it about you. Don't make it about you. Do it in an objective fashion, what you're supposed to be. I always say the smartest people in this world, Jody, the smartest people in this world know what they don't know. And I can't sit here and tell you who Barry Bonds took advantage of that was on steroids or who Roger Clemens struck out that was on steroids. I can read the Mitchell report. I read the Mitchell report like everybody else. The vast majority of players in that report were bad baseball players or mediocre baseball players or average baseball players. So my point is, know what you don't know. You can think you know, and you can lean on the morality of some kind of soapbox. And this is where the Baseball Hall of Fame should take that damn character clause out. And I'll give you an example, and people are going to dislike me. It's much lower, but I vote for the Wrestling Hall of Fame. You and I are Wrestling Hall of Fame. The Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, which is the most respected Hall of Fame in pro wrestling. Chris Benoit made the Hall of Fame. Now, anybody who knows what Chris Benoit did in his life, ultimately after murdered his wife and child and then committed suicide. One of the most horrific things you could ever do. We had a recall election to take him out of the Hall of Fame. I didn't take him out of the Hall of Fame because he's not in the Hall of Fame to be best father, best that. He was one of the best pro wrestlers that ever lived. That's why he was put in the Hall of Fame. I said the same thing with O.J. Simpson. We all know that's even a better end. Why is O.J. Simpson taken out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Was he not one of the best players who ever lived? Is it a Hall of Fame of best husband, best wives, best fathers? It is what it is, Jody. And there are horrible people in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So don't lean on this character clause. And by the way, 60+% of the voters. So it's not everybody. It's not everybody. 60+% voted for Barry Bonds. I want to make that clear. There's a lot of good voters. Rob Monty's one of them who does a great job every year. He's on the show, friend of the show all the time. So it's not everybody. But the people that want to sit there and pretend they know what they can't possibly know, Jody, those people should not have a vote because they're making it about themselves. I watch Barry Bonds. I watch Roger Clemens. We all paid for the television. By the way, these guys made a living off Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. It was the biggest part of baseball. They're two of the greatest players that ever lived. Don't tell me they don't belong in a Hall of Fame. Put any asterisk you want up there. Explain the steroid situation. That's what it is. But these people who are not taking their vote seriously and making themselves part of the story, that's not what a journalist does. And maybe the best example is not Bonds or Clemens. It is Curt Schilling, because that's political. Who gives a crap what Curt Schilling thinks about in politics? Is he and by the way, I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. I can listen to arguments whether he's not or whether he is. But don't give me because he likes Donald Trump or because he's a right winger. Get the hell out of here. Give me your vote. You don't deserve it.
Well, go in reverse order of things you touched on. Real easy not to vote for Curt Schilling. He asked us not to. Curt Schilling came out and said...
Well, don't listen to Curt Schilling either, because he's a whack job, and he's doing it because of his political affiliation. Is he a great baseball player? That's what you should be debating. Does he belong in a Hall of Fame with the greatest baseball player? That's the only question.
Sorry, John. When someone asks me to not cast my vote, to put him in as a member of a club, I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm not going to say, oh, fuck you, Curt Schilling. I'll do whatever I want. No, you're putting more emphasis on yourself. I'm going to dictate whether he's a Hall of Famer or not. I'm going to listen to the guy who says I don't want to be a Hall of Famer and say, okay, you don't want my vote? I won't give you my vote. You got it, Curt. I'm just doing what Curt Schilling.
This is why you do it that way, Jody.
No, you're standing here and you're making a big speech about, don't make it about yourself. Well, you just did. You just said, I'm going to make it about myself.
No.
I'm going to vote for Curt Schilling
Here's
because
the difference, Jody. you're taking Kurt Schilling at the end because he's pissed off at the people who haven't voted for him for so many years because of politics. So it continues to go over and over and over. So the voters made it about them. And then Kurt said, screw you. If you don't think I'm worthy, don't vote for me. And you're just taking that final step and saying, well, Kurt Schilling.
Because on my platform, John, which I have on my radio show, I would have voted for Kurt Schilling the first time 9 times he was on the ballot because I saw him as a Hall of Famer. His 10th and last time this year, I would not have voted for Kurt Schilling because he said, I don't want to be on the ballot. I don't want your Hall of Fame. Okay, you got it, Kurt.
And he's making a political statement. And I don't care about Kurt Schilling's politics. Again, all I'm talking about is the objective. My goal as a voter should be, and every goal of should be the objective standard of what you can have a different standard. And I say, take the character clause out. That's a baseball Hall of Fame mistake. Take that out. That's the easiest example because then you don't have these moral hypocrites, and that's what they are, Jody. Moral hypocrites don't have a soapbox to lean on, and they might do it anyway and prove what jackasses they really are. They might do it anyway, but at least they don't have the soapbox to lean on. Just decide who are the best players in the Hall of Fame. And then we can have those debates. Is so-and-so a first ballot Hall of Famer, which I always think is a silly conversation. But is so-and-so, one of the players I think is a Hall of Famer that most people don't, but I think it was such a unique player was Omar Biskell. Because he's the best defensive shortstop I've ever seen in my life. And I just think it was
better
amazing.
Than Smith?
Yeah, I think he was better. I think he was so amazing for such a long period of time. But I completely get why people wouldn't think he's a Hall of Famer as well. Those are fun debates for me. Those are the fun debates. Barry Bonds took steroids. Roger Clemens took steroids. Don't tell me you knew who looked. And I've had these discussions with Jody. They don't do the research. They don't have any idea what the drugs were. They don't have any idea Jason Grimsley was on steroids. And I'm not picking on Jason Grimsley, but he's just an average player. So go back and look at how many times Jason Grimsley got Barry Bonds out, or vice versa. How many times Roger Clemens got somebody who was juicing out. I mean, what are you trying to say? You have no, and I'm not talking to you, Jody. I'm talking to these voters. You have no stinking idea.
Well, how about A-Rod?
How about A-Rod? He's a Hall of Famer. No brainer Hall of Famer.
Suspended for an entire year.
Who cares?
It's documented that he cheated.
Who cares?
You don't care at all about cheating. If you cheated, it doesn't matter. Just give me your numbers, give me your accomplishment. That's what I will base my Hall of Fame.
Because the entire thing, it's like if somebody commits wire fraud, did they get caught or didn't they get caught? Doesn't mean if they did it or not. They did it. Did they get caught? You know it. If they got caught, if they don't get caught, you don't know it. They still did it. There are so many people in the Mitchell report. It's still out there. Everybody can read it. Count up the number of players, Jody. How many of them got caught? Not many.
Well,
and guess who did get caught?
Those that aren't have faced the consequences as per the rules as they sit right now. And if they choose to change the rules going forward, and it sounds like you and Mike Sielski would like to see that happen, so be it. But the rules right now give voters the chance to vote, and they can draw their own conclusion. John McMullen says, throw away the behavioral clause, that it should have nothing to do with anything. It should purely be based upon what happens on the field. As of right now, the behavioral clause is in the bylaws of how the Hall of Fame voters are supposed to vote. If you choose to ignore it, that would be your call. But I don't think you've got the position to be able to second guess any other voter, which I don't know of one voter who said, yes, I voted for David Ortiz because I liked him as a human being.
Well,
but I didn't vote for Barry. But Mike Sielski did make that claim while he was on, and it sounds to me like you're not far from it. That personal animus and or your relationship with the players affects your vote. And I think that should not be the case. But I don't know one that has stepped up and said, oh, yeah, that's why I voted the way I did. Bonds was an a-hole. I was never going to vote for Barry Bonds. David Ortiz, nice dude, good dude. That's why I voted for. No one has ever gone record and done that before. But that's an assumption some people make because Ortiz got in and Bonds and Clemens didn't.
Yeah, I've never said that. I don't care. I don't care about their personalities. Look, I think Aaron Rodgers isn't going to win the MVP award this year because of that, and I think that's wrong as well. But nonetheless, that's my thought process. I can't prove it. So, as far as David, I didn't cover baseball, for much at all of my career. I do know he got caught, though. I do know he got caught. And I do know that Barry Bonds didn't get caught. And I do know Roger Clemens.
Barry Bonds admitted to it.
Yeah, but he didn't get caught.
Well,
he didn't get caught,
if
Jody.
you're admitted to it, what's the difference?
But there's a big difference. You're the one who said they got caught. Well, one guy got
Barry
caught.
Bonds got caught because he admitted to it.
All right. I'm talking about baseball. All right, let's take Barry Bonds out of it then. Alex Rodriguez got caught. David Ortiz got caught. Why is one a Hall of Famer? The other one's clearly a better player. Not even close. Not even stinking close. Why is one in? Why is one out?
No, I could give you the explanation, but we got a guest coming up. Ortiz was caught when it wasn't against the rules. They hadn't implemented the rules yet that said you can't take steroids. They were testing everyone just to find out what the percentage of the number of players that were taking it at the time. It was supposed to be anonymous. Somehow Ortiz's name leaked out. So according to Mike Sielski, how could that ever happen? Everyone loved David Ortiz. Well, somebody leaked his name. I don't know how.
And I'll ask you. Okay. So now we're going to lean on, and now we're going to have the lawyers go, let's throw it out because it was leaked. It shouldn't have been leaked. But he did it. But it doesn't matter. I can't keep up with it, Jody. I don't know who did it. I don't know who didn't do it on one particular week, what cycle they were on, what cycle. I say this 100 times, and this is why I get mad. I get mad at journalists because I'm a journalist. As a journalist, and the voters are all journalists, I think. Not all, probably not. They should know. The ones who are should know better. They should know better to know what they don't know. So that's what angers me personally. It's like when USC took the Heisman Trophy in the national championship, when college football took the national championship and the Heisman Trophy away from USC and Reggie Bush. What are you telling me? I didn't see it? It didn't happen? You look at the media guide. Oh, they got no wins. There's no Heisman Trophy. I saw it. It existed. Don't pretend to me as a journalist. That's the worst thing you can do as a journalist, to pretend news didn't happen. Pretend something didn't happen, in my opinion.
No, but this is different. Either you're in or you're out. And your career is, well, Ryan Howard's career is Ryan Howard's career, but he's never going to make the Hall of Fame because he didn't get 5%. So you're not wiping out something that didn't happen. You're just questioning how high a pedestal you're going to put it up.
Yeah, but Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, can you tell the history
they cheated.
of baseball?
They cheated, and there's enough people with Hall of Fame votes that decided cheaters shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Can you tell the history of baseball without the names Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens?
And through a Hall of Fame lens, yes. The history of baseball, no. But a Hall of Fame, which is above and beyond, yeah, you can sure as hell do it without Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens or anyone else for that matter.
All right. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
All right, we've got Ira Kaufman coming up next. He's a Hall of Fame voter on the football end. He is a Tampa representative. Yes, she was there when the Eagles got beat by the Bucs a couple of weeks ago. But since then, have things changed in Tampa? Could Tom Brady actually be walking away? We'll talk to Ira Kaufman of JoeBuckFan.com next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You know you like being right. That's why you should enroll in an Independence Blue Cross plan. It's the health plan chosen by more people than any other, with more doctors and hospitals, more benefits that really rock, more of the coverage you want for the right price, including free doctor visits 24/7. It's a choice you can feel good about, because when you're right, you're right. And when you've got Independence Blue Cross, you're right where you need to be. Call 1-844-200-2583 today to get an Independence Blue Cross plan.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
You're watching Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. McMullen and McDonald. Joined by another Hall of Fame voter. We've been debating Hall of Fame over the last couple of minutes. We haven't been able to figure that out. We had Mike Sielski from the Inquirer here in Philadelphia on a couple of minutes ago, and we got off on a Hall of Fame tangent. So we're going to follow in line. We got a whole bunch of things we want to hit on with you. But you and I talked this weekend, and you guys just had your Hall of Fame meeting recently, again virtually. Not in person prior to the Super Bowl, second consecutive year because of COVID. But you thought it actually went pretty damn well this year, huh?
Went pretty well, but it's not the same. It's not the same as meeting in the Super Bowl city the morning before the game. Everybody in that room, all 49 selectors, I think, would rather be in Glendale, Arizona next year rather than a Zoom call. So let's hope that happens. I just think it's interesting to look around the room and see who's interested, who's dozing off during these presentations. You can't do that very well on a Zoom call. And it hurts me, gentlemen, because I tend to be a little dramatic with my presentations.
There we go. Yeah.
I stand up and, you can't take the Brooklyn out of the boy. You can't do it. And so I'm looking to do it in person next year.
You got the booming voice. We can see that, Iris. You could probably bend a few arms, as they say, if you're in the room. So when you do it over Zoom, and you have a passionate speech, I mean, do you still go that direction? Have you changed your strategy when you're trying to lobby for somebody?
I think it's more reserved now. Our friend Sal Palantonio, who's a selector, he said a few years ago that I should make all 15 presentations, all 15. The speech I made for Warren Sapp, which was in 2013, and going into that meeting, it was in New Orleans, and Michael Strahan was on the finalist list that year along with Sapp. And the common wisdom was that Strahan was going to get in first year of eligibility. Sapp was going to have to wait. But it didn't happen. And I'll tell you why. Because in the weeks leading up to it, and I was doing my due diligence on Sapp, I happened to call Keyshawn Johnson. Now, Sapp and Johnson didn't get along well. Sapp didn't respect Johnson. So Keyshawn was in L.A., and I called him, and I said, hey, I'm making the presentation for Sapp in 2 weeks. Does he belong in Canton? Should he get a bust? Well, Keyshawn hesitated, and then he uttered the immortal line. Yeah, he belongs. He's an asshole, but he belongs. And I took that sentence and I brought it right into the meeting room in New Orleans. And David Baker, the president of the hall, said, Ira, nobody's ever used that word in this room before. I said, well, I have now. And so this way, I didn't have to call Sapp an a-hole. I got Keyshawn Johnson calling him an a-hole.
Somebody else to do it. Good job out of you.
But the point is that none of the Sapp nonsense, not signing autographs and being belligerent and crude, none of that matters when you're judging a Hall of Fame player. And by the way, gentlemen, you might not know this, but the NFL does not have any kind of a character clause like baseball does.
Yeah.
It's very
they should
different.
Remove that. They should remove that, Ira.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to judge a guy based on his merits. So now I'm going to judge his character. You're right.
Yeah.
And we were just arguing that about the baseball clause should have come out on the baseball side. You're right. NFL has never used that. All right. Couple of years down the road, as good as you are, even if someone believes you should give the speeches for everybody, I think there are going to be guys in Boston that are going to go, no. Ira, you had him for a short period of time. We had him for decades up here in Boston for that quarterback you guys currently have down there. You're probably not going to get to make the speech for him, but is it going to be 5 years from now or 6 years from now or 7 years from now? A lot of talk prior to the game hadn't happened all season long, at least as far as I'm concerned. You know better. You're right there. You're in town. But nobody was talking about a Brady retirement. And then it became a thing before the game. It wasn't before the Bucks and the Eagles. Nobody was talking about Brady walking away. But for some reason, it did crop up leading into the Ram game, and certainly has been a major topic of conversation over the last several days since the season has ended for the Buccaneers. Where are you at in reading the tea leaves on whether Tom Brady's career has come to an end?
Well, the one thing I can tell you guys for sure, there's panic in the streets in Tampa. Panic. Because until Brady makes an announcement and quells the fears of Buck Nation, this story is going to continue to have legs. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. All he keeps talking about is family. And that's very ominous for Buck fans because, Bruce Arians can't control that. Jason Light, the general manager, can't control that. I don't think it's an issue of the roster. I don't think Brady can go to Denver and think he's got a better chance to win than in Tampa. He's very happy with Arians. By the way, if Leftwich were to leave, and it looks like he might get that Jaguars job, we asked Arians the other day, hey, who's going to call the plays if you lose Byron Leftwich? Arians said, I am. So he didn't even hesitate. He's going to resume taking over the play calling, and I think that's got to make Brady happy. So what I'm saying is, it's all about the family now with Brady. I got it up to 50-50. I had it as maybe a 20% chance he retires. And some people, guys, even think that his demeanor last Sunday in the Rams game was a little bit different. Maybe he wasn't as invested, as involved as he usually is. Maybe when he gets to the sidelines, he wasn't talking up to the other players. Everybody's looking at the tea leaves, like you said. They're all trying to parse words and figure out what's going on. I'll tell you this, guys. If he hangs it up, and you're right, the Boston representative will make the speech for Brady, and I'll add my 2 cents about his 2 years in Tampa. And by the way, they had made the playoffs in 13 years before Brady came to town. So I got something to say about Brady. But if he leaves, and the Bucs are not able to pull off something with Russell Wilson, Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. I think Arians leaves at that point. Certainly,
that's
Gronkowski.
What I was going to ask you, Ira. Yeah. Why do you think that Bruce was so quick to say, I'm coming back? You see what Sean Payton did. Like, he's playing. He figured out life after Drew Brees isn't quite as easy. And Bruce was like, nah, I'm coming back. Do you really want to come back if you don't have Tom Brady? I was a little surprised at how quickly he jumped in that pool.
I wouldn't read too much into that, gentlemen. I really wouldn't. I think he said that for Brady's benefit. But the fact is that could change in a heartbeat. And I think it will if they don't get a veteran quarterback and Brady retires. You know, they got Blaine Gabbert, who for whatever reason, Arians talks him up like he's Johnny Unitas. You know, I think the guy is very pedestrian. He's a lifetime backup, former first-round pick, but he didn't pan out. And then they got this pick, Kyle Trask, second rounder from Florida. Yeah. Arians is not sticking around, to work with Kyle Trask in Tampa. That's not going to happen. So the dominoes could fall very quickly here in Tampa. It could all fall apart pretty darn quickly if Brady leaves.
I want to take you back about 10 days ago or so, Ira, when the Eagles were playing the Buccaneers. They start with the coin toss, and the Eagles won the coin toss and decided to defer. Did you think at that time the game was over?
I'll tell you what, guys. The Eagles didn't show up. I mean, let's be honest. They were awful.
Yeah, they were.
They were just terrible. Fell behind at the start. Couldn't run the ball. Didn't want to run the ball. I don't know why. Hurts is not an outstanding thrower. You know, what Philly does well is run the football with Hurts and some good backs and a good line. I just thought the Eagles stunk. I didn't think they had much of a chance going into the game. That game was over, gentlemen, in 10 minutes. That game was over. And 14-0. I think Brady could have took the rest of the day off. We'll see what happens with Philly down the line, but they need some help on both sides of the ball, no question.
Ira, you know, what did happen in that game was Tristan Wirfs got injured and was unable to come back for the divisional round. Is that what cost the Bucs? I mean, they had one of the best offensive lines in football. All of a sudden, now the Rams are great up front with Aaron Donald and Von Miller now and Leonard Floyd, but they couldn't block those guys.
That was a big factor.
Yeah. Was that Wirfs' injury? Did that essentially cost the Buccaneers that game?
I don't know if they would have beat the Rams with Wirfs, but they would have had a heck of a better chance. And the center got banged up, Ryan Jensen, even though he played.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know what I noticed in the Rams game? Raheem Morris is the coordinator, used to be the coach of the Bucs. I see that he moved Aaron Donald around quite a bit. Every time I looked up, he was playing left defensive end and opposite, where Wirfs was supposed to be standing. By the way, Wirfs is fantastic. The guy is great. What a draft pick by the Bucs. He was the fourth of those offensive tackles. There were four big guys coming out of that draft.
Yeah.
Three of them went before Wirfs, including the Giants took their guy Thomas at number 4. And so when the Buck pick came around, there's Wirfs standing there. Jason Light pounced on him. And I voted for him as an All-Pro a year ago, and I voted for him All-Pro again. He made it this year. It was a big factor. But I just think the Rams were a bad matchup for the Bucs, and I'm starting to think that the 49ers are a bad matchup for the Rams this weekend.
Yeah.
That's where I was going next with my question. Rams did what they did against the Bucs this past week. Oh, let me go for you first. People accuse me of being a Brady too big a fan and put him on a pedestal. Let me go on record. I hate Tom Brady. Hate him with a passion. I'm a Jet guy. He's screwed the Jets for 20 years, so I'm going to hate the guy the rest of his days on the planet. Also, Big Green Monster, jealousy. He's got Giselle, more money than God. Yeah, I hate the guy. But I acknowledge his greatness as the greatest quarterback of all time in the history of the National Football League. And I defended him again on Sunday. Those 3 unnecessary personal foul penalties on the Bucs in the first half. Was that as big a piece of conversation? I know. The game played on. It was the first half. They were way behind. They came back. They tied it. They let Cooper Kupp get open twice in a row. What the hell? Todd Bowles. So there's a lot to it. But as that game was happening, I'm going, man, the referees are taking control of this game. Why would they do this in a divisional round? How big a piece of conversation was it down there that not one, not two, 3 15-yard penalties for unsportsmanlike conduct in the first half of that game on the Bucs.
It was a big post-game issue for Buck Nation. You know, they hit Twitter in force. What the heck are the Zebras doing? They're taking the game away from us. But guys, you watched the game like I watched the game. I thought the Bucs were manhandled. I thought the Rams were far superior. If Akers doesn't fumble at the 1, it's 27-3 at the half. That game's over. They got every break imaginable. That terrible snap by the Rams that came after a Brady fumble that had all the momentum on the Rams side. And the next play is that stupid snap that got the Bucs back in the game.
Yeah.
Where I'm standing, those calls didn't have that much to do with the game. Of course, Buck fans are looking for excuses. You know, they're looking at Wirfs. They're looking at the officials. I didn't think the Bucs played very well, and I thought the Rams deserved to win that game.
You're right, Ira. They got a lot of breaks as far as the fumbles. The fumble late was inexcusable. Sue made a great play, but that's inexcusable from Akers' standpoint.
Yeah.
But they were in it. They came all the way back, and there's Tom Brady, and you could feel things clenching up for the Rams.
Yes.
Todd Bowles, look, great defensive coordinator. You know, maybe he gets a head coaching job. People are advocating for him. I got to tell you, in that situation, 0 blitz, what the hell was Todd Bowles thinking?
That's the guys. That is the post-game discussion that has taken over this town, this region. What was Bowles doing? They rushed 6 guys on that play. 6. The only guy who made any headway was Ndamukong Suh right up the middle, but he got there too late. The other 5 guys were totally neutralized. So when you rush 6 and you don't get there, and you don't move Stafford off his launching spot that he prefers, you're asking for trouble. Then, of all the guys for single coverage, it's Cooper Kupp. Now, with all due respect to Jerry Rice, he's had a couple of these kind of seasons. This is arguably one of the top 3 receiving seasons in NFL history by Cooper Kupp. He started in week 1 and he never stopped. He's going to get his 10 catches on Sunday against the Niners. I mean, he's that good. And so you let him go down the seam. And who does he beat? A safety, Antoine Winfield. You don't even put Carlton Davis, your best corner, on him. People are chopping up Todd Bowles. I mean, they're killing him. And they're even questioning how good he was even before that snap. I don't think that's fair. Look what they did to Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So Bowles is taking the brunt of the criticism. And you know what, guys? He deserves a good bulk of it for that final gaffe. What a gaffe.
Agreed. So it sounds to me like you're leaning toward the Rams this week. No, you had firsthand look at them this week as they beat the Bucs. 49ers have now won 2 straight road playoff games. What's a 3rd straight road playoff game? What's the 3rd game against a team you've beaten 6 straight times? Yeah, the head coach of the 49ers lives rent-free in the head coach of the Rams as far as I'm concerned. Which way you leaning toward the championship game, Rams or 49ers?
The more I think about it, I think this is a bad matchup for the Rams, and I'll tell you why. The 49ers beat you up. They might be the most physical team in the league. Tennessee's really physical. The Niners might be number 1 in that regard. The Rams are not overly physical. I think the Rams are more of a finesse team, even though they got Aaron Donald. What's the strength of the Rams besides Cooper Kupp? The pass rush. Well, I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be because the Niners don't throw the ball very much.
That's true.
And the Bucs throw the ball all over the joint. So it is a big factor when you're playing the Bucs because Leftwich doesn't like to call runs. They had 71 snaps and 13 runs. 71 and 13 last week against the Rams. That's a recipe for disaster. So what I'm saying is the Niners run the ball well, and I don't know about the Rams' rush defense. I think it's mediocre. But Leftwich didn't test it enough, partly because they fell behind quickly and they got in a hole. And this guy, Deebo Samuel, guys, now when I was filling out my All-Pro ballot a couple of weeks ago, you got 3 wide receiver slots. Well, obviously, you're going to put Cooper Kupp. Devontae Adams is a monster, so he gets number 2. Now I'm looking at the 3rd one. Well, Justin Jefferson had a hell of a year in Minnesota. the more I kept thinking about it, I'm looking at Deebo Samuel. I'm saying, all this guy does is make plays. He's a receiver. He's a running back. He's a kick returner. I voted for Deebo Samuel, and I've never looked back. In the last couple of weeks, he's the man.
Yeah.
What a player that guy has turned out to be. So I think the Niners have a very good chance.
Yeah, what a unique player. I think he's the most unique. I think he's the most exciting player in the NFL, Deebo Samuel, right now. But I want to talk to you about the AFC side, Ira, because you've been covering, you've seen a lot of football. In the pantheon of games that you've seen, Kansas City, Buffalo, where do you place that? Is that one of the greatest games of all time, or is this recency bias?
I think it's top three. Considering that it was a second round of a playoff game. I felt bad for Josh Allen when that game ended.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, the guy's fabulous. And he's going to be there for the next 10 years. So if you're in the AFC East, you got problems facing that guy. I don't know if he's better throwing the ball or running the ball. What an arm he's got. Buffalo, to me, shameful with the 13 seconds. I mean, I've been following the Chiefs for 55 years, since the Len Dawson days. And I thought the game was over. I mean, how could I not think that? 13 seconds. Now they're killing him for they're killing him for not squibbing the ball. McDermott has to take the blame. He's the head coach, but what's the special teams guy thinking? All the time that the Bills were driving, at the end, you got to think they're going to go ahead and score a touchdown. You got to think that way if you're on the Buffalo sideline. So you got to be prepared. What if we score with 40 seconds left? What are we going to do? And they were totally caught unprepared. Then terrible defense on 2 snaps. So I'll tell you one thing about this Bengal-Chief matchup. I don't care what the over is. I like the over. I don't care if the over is 70. This one's got 41-38 written all over it, gentlemen.
All right, Ira, you are the perfect guy to ask this question to. Somebody brought it up on my national show after I talked to you this past weekend because of the Green Bay playing in the snow globe weather that they did. Someone suggested that the NFL needs to go to neutral site games. They said for all playoff matchups, which is, of course, ridiculous. But would you push it past just the Super Bowl into championship weekend? They pushed the calendar back, so we're now in even colder weather. We're not going to sweat it this week because it's supposed to be in the 40s in Kansas City, and La La Land will be fine. If you guys had wanted, would have been down in your house. But if it had been Buffalo that was playing this week, we could be looking at a god-awful weather condition. I dismissed it as a former New York guy, now Tampa guy, who's seen both ends of what January can look like weather-wise. Should the NFL even consider it? Is the one game, the Super Bowl, the only neutral site game they have? Or should it go back the other way and say, how do you rob the hometown fans from the ability to see their team? They absolutely should be rewarded with all the Super Bowl tickets. What do you think about playing later in the season and how the NFL deals with the weather that they're going to be?
I'm with you on the dismissal side. First of all, I didn't have a problem with the Packers-Niners game. It's still a hell of a game.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that many guys slipping and sliding. I didn't think it was that bad. Number two, and most importantly, guys, I think the NFL regular season has been cheapened a little bit. They keep adding playoff teams. So let's not cheapen the number one seed. Let's not cheapen, everybody striving to have the best record in the conference, because then the playoffs have to go through your home stadium. No, absolutely not. Forget about this neutral field nonsense. Now, when you're doing the AFC against the NFC in the Super Bowl, well, then all bets are off in terms of record. But these teams that are in the same conference, you got to strive to be number one. There's got to be a reason for it, and it's got to be more than getting one playoff game at home. I mean, every division winner is guaranteed one playoff game at home. You got to have the feeling that you're getting the bye week and that every time you play in the playoffs until the Super Bowl, you're going to be home. I'm with you, my man. I dismiss it. Stupid idea.
Ira, last one for me, because we are in Philadelphia, so I got to focus on Andy Reid. So we have 4 consecutive championship games as a coach in the NFC. Now he's got 4 consecutive championship games as a coach in the AFC. And, oh, by the way, all 4 at home. First time ever somebody's had that kind of run. You're a Hall of Fame voter. We talked about it. Where is Andy Reid now on the list of great coaches in the history of this industry?
Well, I mean, I'm not putting him in the top 5 all time, but he's going to wear a gold jacket, gentlemen. I don't think there's any question about it. Would we be having this discussion if he didn't win that Super Bowl against San Francisco? Maybe, maybe not. I think Super Bowl appearances, multiple, are enough. You know, Philadelphia played a good game against New England in that Super Bowl with Andy Reid. His accomplishments are pretty darn good. I mean, I think he's like number 5 or 6 on the all-time win list. And now he's done it in each conference with 2 different teams. Guys, you're in Philly. I'm a Sixer fan. Can you guys talk to Daryl Morey and tell him you can't wait till the end of the year to trade Simmons because Embiid's playing out of his mind? Give the man a little help, and who knows? You get the right guys for Simmons, you might win the championship this year. Can you guys talk to him?
I love it. I love it. We try all the time. I'm with you, Ira. Make the deal. Do it.
Embiid's the best player in the league right now. He's the best player in this league.
He's a legit MVP candidate, and he hasn't missed all that many games. Those that he missed were COVID-related, and I think they'll cut him some slack for that this year as compared to last year where you can make an argument that he was the MVP. All right, Ira, last thing. Are you moving outdoors, that nice little patio you got behind you, to watch this weekend's championship action? Because we're going to be inside. It's going to be in the teens here in Philadelphia. Do you get to watch the action outside? What's it going to be like Sunday in Tampa?
It's going to be chilly. It's going to be in the 40s now. It's 60 right now, and we can't handle it. We can't handle it.
We might get 8 inches of snow. By the way, you're a Brooklyn guy, Ira. So the New York Daily News yesterday, they put out a headline. I kid you not. New York might get between 2 and 20 inches of snow. Now, how's that for a prediction?
Now, look, guys, you know this is true. When I was growing up, we were guaranteed 2 15-inch snows every darn winter. I mean, every one. And now I watch the national news at 6:30 at night, and they're going to a meteorologist who's standing near the George Washington Bridge outside, and he's panicking because at the end of the day, he says New York City might get 4 inches on Sunday. I mean, what's going on in this world, gentlemen?
Oh, you were able to dodge the awful bullets of New York, and they're less than terrible weather than they used to have. Yeah, you and I grew up at the same time, Ira. It was worse. But yeah, I'd like to be where you are this weekend to be able to watch the leisurely NFC Championship game stuff outside. All right, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate the Hall of Fame insight, the Brady insight. Thanks for hopping on with us today. We'll get you on again down the road.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
That is Ira Kaufman, Hall of Fame voter for the Tampa area, all the Buck players and the like, and columnist for JoeBuckFan.com. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We still got 10+ minutes left. Come on back with us here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You know you like being right. That's why you should enroll in an Independence Blue Cross plan. It's the health plan chosen by more people than any other, with more doctors and hospitals, more benefits that really rock. More of the coverage you want for the right price, including free doctor visits 24/7. It's a choice you can feel good about. Because when you're right, you're right. And when you've got Independence Blue Cross, you're right where you need to be. Call 1-844-200-2583 today to get an Independence Blue Cross plan.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Mac here with Young Birds. 365 comes down the home stretch today. Thursday get together on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. I can tell by the stream today, all you guys coming in with your comments, most of them, Johnny, you get worried about what these guys think. They're way more ticked off at me and my belief and or attitudes toward the Hall of Famers. So don't know how many likes we're going to get today. And I'll apologize to you for that. I won't apologize to anybody else, but I'll apologize to you for that.
The point, like, share, and subscribe because you like the conversation. You know, we have a good back and forth. That's what the like is. Nobody's going to like everybody's opinions. But yeah, I mean, I've stopped caring about that. But I do think the Hall of Fame is partially to blame. Maybe more than partially to blame, because I do think that character clause is a problem because people lean on it. And whereas Ira pointed out, they don't have that in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you don't have that to lean on. Now, maybe it doesn't make a difference. Maybe these guys are so up there, you know what, that they'd still say, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. He did steroids. He did this. He did that. Maybe they still do it. But I do think if you don't have that to point to, I think it makes it better. I think it makes it more clear for the voters. All right, I'm not worried about that. I'm just focused what he did on the field, which to me makes the most sense.
Right, and my stance would be, if there's no clause, you vote for whoever you want, no matter what kind of character player there are. If there is a clause in there, as just because you think it should come out, you should not vote in that way. That you don't get to interpret your own rules. If there's a character clause in there, I think you should apply it. If there's not, yeah, you don't. You just stick to what they did on the football field. So baseball's Hall of Fame is different.
Well, but let me also stress, Jody, it says specifically you can consider, you also don't have to consider. So it's up to the person. It's not saying you have to consider character. It just says you can use that as part of your, and people have used that as a crutch. That's why I want to take that crutch away. That would be my solution, at least first solution.
Fair enough. All right, last couple of minutes. Let's get back to the Birds, at least in part. There was a hiring yesterday, John, the first ever of the offseason for another coaching position. We're back down to just 8 openings because we had 8. Sean Payton threw his opening into the ring by walking away from the Saints. But the Green Bay Packers have hired the offensive coordinator. Excuse me, the Denver Broncos have hired the offensive coordinator from Green Bay.
Does that excite you, Jody? Nathaniel Hackett?
I don't know enough about Nathaniel Hackett. I've never heard him interviewed once. He's had some success, did well in Jacksonville with a mediocre team and a mediocre quarterback, and that got him the Green Bay job. And then, I think a lot of guys could look good working with Aaron Rodgers because he's that good a player. But to me, and I've gone down this road basically all week long from the time the action ended on Sunday. Could Brady retire? Rodgers could retire, but more likely it's going to go to the AFC. And Sean Payton is walking away from New Orleans. Yeah, things are opening up. And I'm trying not to look at this through bird-colored glasses, but reality says, yeah, the AFC is getting tougher. The NFC is getting weaker because of these things that have happened over less than this past week. Yeah, I absolutely believe that this increases the chances that the MVP, that's what I think he's going to be at the end of the season. I think he's going to get the vote over Brady. Mr. Rogers' new neighborhood is going to be Mile High, that he's going to the Broncos. And I'm sorry, there's no way to slice that other than that's good news for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it's good news for everybody in the NFC. And you're right, you know, a lot of dominoes have to fall. We've talked about it, not just, as you mentioned, if Tom Brady retires, if, you know, Sean Payton's out in New Orleans, but things can go a negative way as well. I mean, what if Brady's back? What if Rodgers is back in Green Bay? What if Sean Payton lands in Dallas? I mean, things can move quickly in this league. And it might, but there's at least a path to sunlight, to flowers blooming. We'll use that. And things, you know, could shift dramatically in the NFC side. I already think the AFC is better to begin with. And if they get stronger and stronger and stronger, that means there's going to be a wide open path for not just the Eagles, but everybody else. So if you make some good decisions in the offseason, and we talked about that with Mike Sielski, they got a decision to make with Jalen Hurts. And it's tougher than people realize because it's just easier. I've said it from pretty much day one. It's not a criticism of Jalen Hurts. It's not a criticism of the San Francisco 49ers, who I am, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, obviously, who I'm seriously leaning about taking to go back to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo for the second time. That's how much respect I have for Kyle Shanahan. You can win in other ways, but it just makes it more difficult. So why do you want to make your life more difficult if you don't have to? I guess would be my question.
My question to you is, you mentioned the Sean Payton to the Dallas Cowboy possibility, and you and I kicked it around yesterday about what was or wasn't in place previously for that to happen and what caused it to go by the wayside. Give me the percentage chance you think Dallas is going to be able to have Sean Payton be their coach in 2022.
I think it's low. I think it's probably 10%. But now 2023, I think it's probably more than 50%.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I might go slightly less than 10 here because if not, and I'm a Sean Payton fan. I think he's a great coach. If you watched any part or that entire thing, which I spent an hour and a half of my life watching the other day, I thought he was great. And he really, he was the kind of guy you wanted to root for and you wanted to see good things happen for him. If he's a stone cold liar, I'm going to lose some respect for the guy because he came out and said, I'm not coaching in 2022.
Yeah.
He didn't say, I'm not coaching the.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will. I think he wants to try TV. And I mentioned that yesterday. If he likes it, he might not want to come back. But I do think he wants to try TV. I still think it's more likely than not that he's not going to coach this season. By a significant degree, we're putting those percentages 90-10, whatever. I think it's very unlikely he's going to coach next year, but then all avenues should be open at that point, and we'll see. Hopefully he likes TV and hopefully he stays there for John Gruden a level of time or a Bill Cowher level of time.
Yeah, and Cowher's, of course, never come back to coach. Gruden did, but Gruden did stay a long time, but he also got out a little earlier than Sean Payton did. I think he's probably going to coach in the NFL again, but I will be flat out disappointed if he does so in 2022. And not because it's most logical if he does, it's with the Dallas Cowboys. No, anybody, don't care who it is, Philadelphia Eagles. They bring him in here to replace Sirianni, which I would think was a mistake. But even if they did, as big a fan as I am of Sean Payton, I don't want to see it. He said he didn't want to coach this year. He's got a contract. He walked away from it.
What do I always say about those press conferences, Jody? Nobody's under oath. Nobody's under oath.
Yeah, I would hold him to an oath-like standard on this one. You walk away from your job, that's a little bit more than just...
That has to do with Drew Brees being in the booth, by the way. That has a lot to do with television as well. They tried to get Drew Brees out of the booth late this season. He didn't say. He said, "Nah, I enjoy it. I'm done." And all of a sudden, he's like, "You know what? This is a little bit too difficult without Drew. I'm getting the heck out of here."
There's one thing for misdirection for an organization like the Eagles may have if they decide to change their mind about Jalen Hurts. I comprehend. I get that. It's almost standard operating procedure. You're talking about the rest of your life and your career, and you go, "Oh, no, I don't want to coach this year. Oh, no, I'll coach this year." Yeah.
By the way, I thought it was interesting. I read Jody said, because Bruce Arians, if Tom Brady says no, Bruce Arians might be out of there, even though he said he's going to come back. He might get the heck out of there quick. Can you imagine? Then we'd have 10 openings. 10.
But
we got 10 total. Obviously, Denver has cleared the docket of 1, but that's pretty amazing turnover.
I would tie that to more so to what the Eagles did in their postseason press conference than what Peyton did the other day because, there's a reason for it. He's trying to influence Brady.
Yeah.
You and I won a Super Bowl together. You and I got one more shot here, big guy. Come on. And then when Brady says, never mind, coach. Coach said, yeah, never mind for me too. So I understand where Arians is coming from. And yes, I would not hold him to oath-like standards just yet. All right, clock says we'd be out of time. J-Mac, you and me again 22 hours from now. You here?
Yeah, championship game week, game day Kratz tomorrow morning.
Eddie K will be with us. We'll run down some game day stuff and Eagle stuff here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube,